Welcome to Reparenting Daily, your free daily guide for inner child healing and repairing the relationship with yourself. This podcast helps you establish a consistent reparenting routine and is divided into 3 sections. The first is the daily reading, the second is a discussion of the reading, followed by suggested journal prompts, and the last section is peaceful binaural beats meditation for closing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whenever and wherever you're joining us. I'm so glad that you could join us on this journey of self-expansion. If this is your first time here, welcome. As a celebration of passing episode 700, I've opened a free membership tier for the Patreon community so you can access additional resources and join the weekly Zoom calls for free. I know there's a lot going on in the world right now and that so many people are really struggling. My hope here is to still encourage others to continue the work on reparenting and to offer a free community where people can come together and do that. I'd also like to thank all of you who've been along on the journey so far. Just as a reminder, this is a free podcast, but you can support the project by purchasing the Reparenting Daily Journal, where you can follow us along all year. This 333-page journal gives you extra insight and resources for each week, and also provides space for you to keep your notes. Another way to support the podcast is to purchase the Fairy Tales for Reparenting series, volumes 1 through 3. This collection organizes famous and obscure fairy tales from around the world into the 3 phases of the hero's journey. While you might think that fairy tales are for kids, I'd like to challenge you. These stories contain profound truths and lessons carried down over millennia that we can use in our reparenting journey. It's a fun way to reconnect with your inner child. Each volume comprises 10 fairy tales. They include an analysis section to help you dive deeper into the message, as well as journal prompts and space to reflect on the story's meaning in your life. Lastly, you can also support the project by taking a paid Patreon subscription, by purchasing the books on the website, or by donating via Buy Me a Coffee. You can find all this information on the Support Us section of the website. So now, with these announcements out of the way, let's dive into today's practice. Today's reading is entitled The Psychology of Routine, Structure, Stability, and the Architecture of Daily Life. This is an essay/blog and it's very long, so I'm going to split it over several days. Just as a reminder, we're now in April, and the theme for this month is developing structure and discipline. We're in week 1, and it's the first day of week 1. The theme for this week is the importance of structure. As always, you can find a link in the show notes if you'd like to continue to read ahead, but I will split this over the next few days as it's quite long. But there are many other related articles on this blog website, so you can go ahead and check it out if you enjoy this read. Here we go. The Psychology of Routine, Structure, Stability, and Architecture of Daily Life. This essay is part of a broader part of psychological work by R.J. Starr. His essays form the part of his work, exploring the structures and conditions of the human experience. I have always been a structured person. Even as a child, I found comfort in rhythm, predictability, and quiet personal routines. Sundays were never idle for me. I look forward to them as opportunities for order and reflection. I would wake up with a plan. Read whatever books I could pick my hands up from on the library that week, clean and reorganize my bedroom, take care of small chores, and immerse myself in whatever ideas I had that took hold that week. These were not assigned tasks. They were chosen rituals, acts that brought coherence and a sense of control to my world. But that rhythm was rarely allowed to hold. Nearly every week was time interrupted by someone else's expectations. My grandparents or my parents would come into my room early in the morning and declare without warning, "Get up, get dressed, we're going shopping," or "We're going for a drive," or perhaps "We're heading out for a family picnic." And if it wasn't an outing, it was a demand: cleaning the garage, mow the lawn, sweep the car. My plans, my pace, my internal structure were treated as secondary, something to be overridden at a moment's notice. I remember how intrusive it felt, not because the tasks were unreasonable, but because the assumption always seemed to be that I had no right for a structure of my own. I was expected to adapt, to be agreeable, to treat unpredictability as something joyful or noble. And when I resisted, I was cast as inflexible, disobedient, or unwilling to just go with it. That framing of spontaneity as inherently good and routine as inherently repressed has followed me into adulthood. We live in a culture that glorifies the unplanned, impulsive, and the new. Films, social media, popular advice frame spontaneity as a sign of freedom, vitality, and openness to life. In contrast, structure is often coded as dull, restrictive, or controlling. A person who thrives on routine is imagined to be missing out on something more meaningful, as if depth and order cannot coexist. But this assumption is more than incorrect. It is psychologically unfounded. Routine is not a failure of imagination. It is a system of emotional and cognitive regulation. It reduces unnecessary decision-making, protects against overwhelm, and creates the conditions for deeper reflection and sustained freedom. It is not the opposite of spontaneity. It is what gives us form and space to emerge without chaos. This essay explores the emotional and psychological architecture of routine. It challenged the idea that structured living is less authentic or less alive, and argues instead that routines are one of the most intelligent and stabilizing tools for the human mind. It's not lifeless. It is sustaining, and for many people, it is the foundation of clarity, not the absence of it. I'm going to go grab my glasses because I'm struggling to see the screen. Continuing with the reading, cultural bias against routine. The idea that routine is a sign of limitation is deeply embedded in modern culture. From coming-of-age films to lifestyle marketing, the recurring message is that the best moments of life are unplanned. Characters are celebrated for saying yes without thinking, for taking last-minute road trips, for quitting jobs on a whim or disrupting their lives to pursue something more vivid. These portraits are not just a narrative of choice. They reflect a deeper assumption that freedom is found in unpredictability, and that life is good when it resists structure. Routine, by contrast, is often coded as emotionally stagnant. It is associated with drudgery, repetition, or fear of change. The person who follows on a schedule, who keeps a consistent rhythm, is rarely shown as living fully. At best, they are the foil to a more adventurous character. At worst, they are depicted as repressed, dull, or in need of awakening. The cultural script is clear. Structure is something to break free from, not something to build a life upon. This bias is reinforced in subtle ways. People who prefer routines are frequently asked to explain themselves, as if their comfort with repetition must hide a lack of ambition or imagination. Meanwhile, those who live impulsively are rarely required to justify their choices. Spontaneity is treated as self-evidently viable. It is assumed to signal openness, courage, and emotional vitality. But that assumption collapses under scrutiny. Not all spontaneity is meaningful. Not all structure is defensive. The preference for spontaneity is not neutral. It reflects an emotional ideology, one that equates unpredictability with growth and equates structure with fear. But the real psychological development happens in chaos. Emotional maturity is not found in perpetual novelty. It is found in depth of reflection and a capacity to tolerate sustainability, to tolerate stability without needing to escape it. The capacity is not celebrated nearly enough. The common framing also ignores what routine actually requires. To build a sustained, consistent pattern of behavior demands forethought, regulation, and commitment. These are not traits of weakness. They're signs of integration. Routine is not what people do because they are free to live. It is what many people do in order to live well. To rethink routine, we must first let go of the false binary between structure and aliveness. The question is not whether a person is free or bound. The question is whether their way of thinking is coherent, sustainable, and rooted in self-awareness. For many, the answer comes not through disruption, but through rhythm. Routines do not close lines off. It opens it up, precisely because it provides a structure stable enough to support complexity. Thank you, and that's the reading for today. Welcome back. This reading dismantled the lie that most people don't even realize they're living, that structure kills freedom. In reality, lack of structure is what creates chaos, stress, and inconsistency. What stands out is how routine is not framed as restriction, but as self-protection. It reduces decision fatigue, creates stability, and gives your mind a space to actually think instead of constantly reacting. Without structure, you're not free. You're just drifting, pulled in different directions by whatever shows up. There's also a deeper emotional layer here. The author's childhood experiences show what happens when your internal structure is consistently overridden. You lose a sense of ownership over your time and your life. That hits harder than it sounds. When you don't feel in control of your own rhythm, it becomes difficult to build discipline as an adult. Structure then isn't just about productivity. It's about reclaiming autonomy. It's saying my time, my energy, my focus, these are mine to direct. The biggest shift is in understanding that structure and spontaneity are not opposites. Structure is what makes meaningful spontaneity possible. Without a stable foundation, spontaneity turns into impulsiveness. With structure, it becomes intentional and enjoyable. Discipline isn't about suffocating your life. It's about building a system that supports it. And once that system is in place, everything else becomes easier. Focus, consistency, and even creativity. As we go into the journal prompts for today, number 1, where in my life am I lacking structure? And how is that affecting my focus, energy, or progress? Number 2, do I associate structure with restriction or support? And where did that belief come from? And number 3, what is one simple routine that I can introduce or strengthen this week to create more stability in my daily life? That's it for today. As always, thanks for being here. Take care of yourself and please do be well. Welcome back. Now, this is the third and final section of the daily podcast. This is your silent meditation. Please find a place where you can be comfortable and undisturbed, where you can relax and spend some time with yourself for the next 10 minutes. You can choose to be sitting, standing, lying down, or in whatever position makes you most comfortable today. Just take some time to listen to yourself. Next, be sure that you're taking time to be with your breath and to connect more fully with your body. Don't be disturbed or overwhelmed by your thoughts. Simply allow them to pass. Just observe them. Do not engage with your thoughts. Only be mindful of them passing, as if they are leaves drifting down top of a river. Use this time to connect with yourself. Whatever time of day you are listening to this, namaste.